to a number of our guests that are watching online. Very nice. Thank you for the media for turning up as well this evening. So we move on to the first item on the agenda. Could I just remind you all to speak very clearly into your microphone? Don't look to the side like I just did, because you then dip out. So talk into the microphone so that everybody online can hear you. So first item on the agenda is the minutes of the previous meeting. Could I please have somebody to confirm their true record?
Post those as the true record, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Paul Fuller, and seconded by Councillor Carl Love. I would just take a couple of seconds to do my signature. Thank you very much. I'd like to, under item number 2, it's declarations of interest. Does anybody have any declarations of interest, please?
Thank you.
Councillor Jordan.
Thanks, Chair. I'd like to declare an interest under item 5, please.
Are there any other declarations of interest, please? Councillor Jonathan Baker.
Yes, item 7, isn't it, the D bid? I'm a D bid payer, so I have pecuniary interest and will need to leave the room for that item.
No one else? Okay, thank you very much. So we move on to item number 3. We do have a written question by a member of the public, but we will send a reply as they're not here to receive the reply. Thank you. Okay, so we move on to item number 4 on the agenda, which is the chairman's announcement. Just a couple of things to announce, really. Today was Emergency Services Day, 999 Day, and I'd like to pay thanks to Councillor Brodie, Chairman of the Council, and his team for making arrangements to mark the Emergency Service Day. I think it's the first time, isn't it, Councillor Brodie, it's been done? Yeah. With a flag raising at County Hall, we bought a special flag. Today is a great opportunity to recognise the immense work and sacrifice made by all of those in the emergency services to keep our whole community safe. Such a worthwhile day. The work they do in preventing incidents is perhaps less public than when they're actually responding, but it's an essential part of the role which everyone gives of the best of every hour, every day and every year. So thank you to our incredible emergency services on behalf of everyone. Councillor Brodie.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, sorry for the delay as well, Chair. Yeah, that was the first time we've ever held an emergency services day recognition event on the island, though it is a national event. And I mean, I'll take 1% of the credit for it. I mean, essentially, it was all the staff who support me and support other people who set it up. And Simon Wiggins is part of that. So thanks to Simon since he's here. The intention was to have one this year, and it was fairly low-key in County Hall's car park, just so that we could hopefully get some publicity from the media about it, so there'll be some public awareness of it, and hopefully that in future it will take place in St Thomas's Square, much like the Armed Forces did in June. And just one final thing, one thing that was brought to my attention some weeks ago is that even in the main square in the county town of the Isle of Wight, there is not a permanent flagpole. I am arranging for that to be delivered, to be provided at some point in the future by the good officers of Newport and Carisbrooke Community Council, because I know they'll do things much faster than the Isle of Wight Council. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Brodie. And yes, we look forward to next year because, again, I think it'll be a bigger event, so that's really good. So just to mention about the island deal, at the start of the summer, the Prime Minister set out an intention to bring forward a white paper that would level up the country. Central to this suggestion was a proposal for the development of county deals. I mean, they couldn't make it more complicated if they tried, but anyway, to devolve powers from central government to county areas. County deals are to be based on a sensible economic geographic of suitable scale with a good local identity. The government has been looking for some areas of this to be a pilot scheme of the new county deals to include in the white paper, and I understand that there have been a good number of conversations about the possibility initiated by many of the larger councils and unitary councils. The Isle of Wight Council has not initiated any such discussions, although we have been listening to government Zoom meetings about it. The focus of this Alliance administration remains on the completion of the long-promised island deal from government. We've been down the county lines before with Councillor Bacon, and it was a very county deal. Yours was county deal, sorry. County deal, sorry. We've been down that road before, and it was a long road without too much, we just wasted time. So the focus of this alliance is most certainly the completion of the long-promised island deal from government, or some alternative approach to levelling up the island with the mainland. I will be asking ministers for a meeting to clarify where the island deal now sits in this new landscape and what more can be done to complete it and bring it to absolute fruition. We simply don't have time to keep waiting. And I will end on a little bit of a high, which is the Public Sector Transformation Awards. Very pleased to report that the Council received 2 awards at last night's Public Sector Transformation Awards organisation by the Institution of Excellence in Public Service. We received a bronze award in the communications category for our campaign with key partners to support the rollout of the NHS COVID-19 app, version 1, and engage closely with local key partners. We also won a silver award in the community category for the COVID response service we delivered with Community Action, who were amazing. Citizens Advice, again, great. Age UK, NHS, CCG, and around the 30 local community partner hubs that were absolutely imperative in that time of crisis and to ensure the clarity of information both to residents and partner organisation. Both awards are absolute testament to the innovation and creativity of our staff team and the strength and benefits of working closely in partnership with our communities, which is very much a key focus of the way the Alliance administration intends to work in now and for the lifetime of this council. My absolute personal, sincere thanks to each and every individual across our island that made that possible. I'm hoping that this will be a springboard from which we can learn for the future and grow. So well done, everybody, on all of those awards. Actually, very much deserved, I would say. So that's all I have to announce. Thank you. We move on to item 5, which is the quarterly performance report, pages 21 to 82. Councillor Jarman.
Thank you, Chair. A very detailed report with a lot of appendices to it, so I don't make any apologies for that. You'll see that it covers the period, particularly with a lot of the financial performance up to the end of June. I should note that for that quarter, 2/3 of that time was actually under the previous administration, and it only reflects, therefore, the first month under our own administration. It's there, it's tabled, I commend it to you, and I'm happy to take any questions on it.
I wondered who that was then. Are there any questions?
I was going to propose that we note the report. Thank you.
Okay, noted. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Sorry. Oh, right. You got,
Chair, I wasn't. I wouldn't expect ever to. I'm quite surprised that you didn't actually refer to the outcomes from the Corporate Scrutiny Committee the other night, where there were a number of questions raised regarding the performance management report by myself. I think it's important that Cabinet members do note them, where they weren't able to respond on the night because they weren't there to reflect on them and be prepared for further questions about those areas in the future, because I think I highlighted issues that may be not relevant to your administration, but you've inherited them, and I hope to see some improvements. Thank you.
Councillor Jarman.
Yes, if I can insist, I'm sorry, I only just got presented with this piece of paper as we came in. I hadn't had a chance to read it yet. I can, however, address item 3A1 on the list here, which is regarding the savings from 2021 being transferred to the reserve capital. That's in compliance with the budget reports, 24th of February 21, section 169B, where it was so agreed. I can give you the quote of it if you give me a minute to find it, if anybody would like it.
No, I don't think that's necessary. Thank you.
So I've no idea what Councillor Jarman's referring to. It's a highly technical. He might as well have been reading an engineering manual. I prefer to deal in plain English. Is he saying that all you're doing in terms of the revenue reserve for capital is continuing to implement the decisions of the Budget Council in February, rather than what Councillor Stevens said at the Corporate Scrutiny, saying reviewing that situation? Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Stevens.
I stand by my remarks and the answer to your question at the previous meeting at Corporate Scrutiny, that we are reviewing the budgetary situation. It's quite responsible to review the budgetary implications of the previous administration and where we're moving to. Some of the information in our forward plan and the way we're moving the organisation is slightly contrary to the previous administration. So quite truthfully, we will be looking at that, and I take that through with the leader and cabinet members. It's not a moving feast, but let's face it, we need a budget that is that we can work on, and we can achieve our objectives of this administration. I hope that satisfies you, Councillor Brodie.
I think the intent very much with the budget report of February was to recognise that many things have been delayed in the previous year. We all know the reasons for that with COVID. There were a number of capital expenditures and a number of other associated revenue items that were fully expected and anticipated. A substantial number of those have been delayed. And so the budget report provided for the amount to be effectively, non-technical term, parked into a reserve, so that the review process that would occur now, which is ongoing, in fact, we've had meetings this week, we have further meetings next week and the week after, and indeed within the budget review, we'll look at those line items and make a determination about whether they should continue, having not started, whether having started partially they should now be continued with, or whether the fund should be reprioritised in some way. So all of that will be fed into the current budgetary review process.
Thank you, Chairman. If I may, just a quick comment. The funds have been transferred into the two accounts as reported by Councillor Jarman. However, they are parked there, as Councillor Jarman has said, subject, because there's effectively no approval to spend, and that approval to spend would need to come back through this committee. And of course, that would be then subject to the review process as referred to.
Okay, is everyone happy that we move on? Thank you very much. So we move on to item number 6 on the agenda, which is the deployment of the discretionary business support grant. And I'm noted, thank you, Councillor Brodie, for reminding me that I should mention what was said at corporate scrutiny, and that was that you, the proposal was noted. So, Councillor Jones-Evans, would you like to say anything?
Thank you, Chair. So you'll find the report on page 83 of our bundle here, fairly self-explanatory, and basically this is a residual sum of money that has come from government for support for businesses during the COVID crisis, especially during lockdown. And I think it's worthwhile just noting that just under £100 million was distributed by the Isle of Wight Council staff to ensure that businesses were kept afloat during this really very tricky time. So so obviously thanks go to government, but also more thanks to our staff who diverted themselves to getting all this money out in a very timely fashion so that rents could be paid and so on and so forth. So just want to put that in perspective as well. So the remaining amount of money, about £273,000, discussed with colleagues on the Economic Development Board. So that's the Chamber of Commerce, the Isle of Wight Council, and Federation of Small Businesses, just to name 3 of those important members on that, and Visit Isle of Wight. And so you look on page 85 for the top sort of 12 to 17, you'll see I've outlined a number of areas we'll be looking at. So some of that is training, some of it's support for the cultural sector, tourism, hospitality, working with the youth hub as well, and developing, working further with the Kickstart programme. So we've gone for like a wide spread of support, because actually if you were going to go individual businesses through what the residual money that's left, it really will be a drop in the ocean with the 5,000 businesses we have on the Isle of Wight. So, and if there was, God forbid, any other further call on government to support businesses, then there will be a fresh amount of money. So don't need to labour this really, so it's all pretty well set out in the paper. Page 86, so we've got the 3 options there. So it's basically to spend the money as laid out between 12 and 17 on page 85, but also to give me delegated powers to the specifics of the projects, to work with the Economic Development Board, because we have to spend this by the 31st of March. If we're to bring it back to this process, obviously we probably won't run out of time to be able to deliver any benefit. Of course, we could just hold on to the money and see what happened, what came forth, or we could decide to return the money to government. So I would recommend to you, Chair, and to my Cabinet colleagues that we go for option A, which is to support the recommending COVID discretionary business grant funds being committed to the areas set out in paragraphs 12 to 17, with details to be agreed by the Cabinet member in consultation with the Isle of Wight Economic Development Board Executive. Thank you.
Happy to second. Right, Councillor Phil Jordan second. Does anyone wish to speak on it, or should we just go to the vote? Straight to the vote then. All those in favour, please.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Those against? Okay, thank you. Okay, so we move on to item 7 on the agenda, which is the D bid. Councillor Bacon is leaving on the D bid item. So I note the scrutiny, the proposal was supported as the ballot would provide clarity over the future of Visit Isle of Wight. So that was supported. Julie, it's you, Councillor Jones-Evans, you again.
Yes, me again, Leader, thank you. And I was listening to corporate scrutiny. I tuned in and was able to listen to the comments that came forward, and was quite heartened by it. So obviously we have the report there on page 89, and the report just outlines a formal process that the council was requested to administer to reballot levy payers, as well as confirming our support, because we are a levy payer too, mostly through our leisure centres, for instance. So I think it's roughly about £13,000 a year the Isle of Wight Council would be giving to support Visit Isle of Wight as a levy payer. So this goes for the second term for the D BID, which is a Destination Business Improvement District. And as it is a BID, Business Improvement District, there is a strict legislation around it and how the process it has to go through. So it's very, very strictly monitored, and we have to follow the process to the letter. But so Visit Isle of Wight has had success in promoting the island to the visitor market across the country. And it's given much assistance to helping companies get government support during the pandemic as well. The absence of the capacity and budget provided by the D BID would seriously undermine, in my view and others, the island's ability to sell itself as a destination to the growing staycation market. Further research into alternative funding sources is proposed in the report, which you can see within, should the ballot be unsuccessful. But just want to be clear about what we're talking about tonight. So tonight we are agreeing or otherwise to support the ballot itself, and also collection of the levy, and then that be distributed back to Visit Isle of Wight, and also our own vote as well, our own yes vote. So that's basically what we've got. I'm not going to go through everything. We have Appendix 1, you'll see the report for the last 5 years, and then we also have the draft business plan as well. It's in draft still because that's still being worked on, because the business plan is basically built on feedback from all the levy payers from the past 5 years. So it's actually more or less written for the beneficiaries, for the levy payers, and there's a whole series of outputs that will be delivered over the next 5 years. And I'm quite heartened to see some of the things I'll be covering, particularly the accessibility tourism as well, which I think is a really, really important sector that we need to highlight, that the Isle of Wight welcomes people with accessibility issues. So we've got a long agenda, so I don't want to labour the point any longer. Happy to take any questions from our members, obviously. So the recommendation, we've actually got a binary decision here this evening. So option A is to support the D BID proposition, agree to run and manage the legal processes necessary to undertake the ballot of potential levy paying businesses, agree to cast its votes in favour of the D BID proposition, and set aside the sums required to pay if the levy is possible. Option B is not to do that. So I would like to propose to you, Chair, that we go for option A and to support the D BID.
Okay, Councillor Paul Fuller.
Chairman, I'm very happy to second that proposal. I think one of the growth areas for the island, and will continue to be the growth areas for the island, is tourism. And tourism and hospitality really needs as much support that they can have. There's a lot of competition out there, a lot of other authorities that are more better heeled than the Isle of Wight, and they need that extra push. And I think that if we don't have Visit Isle of Wight doing this, who's going to do that in their place? And that worries me, that concerns me, and it concerns me the impact that could have on our wider community. So I'm very happy to second that proposal. Thank you.
Councillor Jordan.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to support this on the basis that we are being asked to agree to run and manage the process, and that the members of D BID will make the decision and not us. So on that basis, I'm happy to support it.
Yeah, sorry, Leader, I forgot to sort of mention that actually there's a ballot. So basically all the people that will be required to pay a levy should be successful will be invited to a vote, and the voting process begins at the end of September and I think ceases on the 28th of October. So there's a month in order to cast a ballot, and they'll have all the information sent to them to make an informed decision. And thank you, Councillor Fuller, for pointing out how important the visitor economy is to the Isle of Wight, our third biggest employer on the island.
Thanks for that clarification, Councillor Jordan, because that's important, that it's the process that, not the actual mechanism. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? No, no, then I'm going to bring on Councillor Garrett.
Thank you, Chair. This is working. That's great. Thank you for taking my comment. I noticed in the draft business plan that they had found that 60% of the rating the performance of the white bid as satisfactory or above. If it were to be continued with, I would hope this council, being one of those who would be paying the levy, would be looking to those who run the bid to examine why that number is not higher. That's quite a low figure after 5 years, I would have thought. So only 60% are finding satisfactory or above, satisfaction or above in the delivery of the projects, to examine exactly why it is that 40% weren't able to give that rating. Now, some of them may be just a little less than satisfactory or whatever. And over the course of whatever the period of the next bid is, to ensure that one of the performance targets is to ensure, were it to go ahead, that that satisfaction performance is much, much higher than currently 60%.
Thank you for that, Councillor Garrett. Councillor Judy Jones-Evans, and then
thank
thank
you. Just to come back on that, Councillor Garrett, thank you for pointing that out. This was from the statistics that came back from the result of this summer's survey that they carried out. My question, because the council is actually, we're board members of VISIT Isle of Wight, and I did question about the survey returns, and it seems quite a lot of dissatisfaction comes from ferry performances, and also a lot of the roadworks that we've had to suffer this summer, especially around Sandown. It went out the same time that Sandown was had Southern Water and White Fibre, I think, were digging up the roads there. So a lot of the dissatisfaction came around something that actually wasn't VISIT Isle of Wight's outputs itself. It was more the general sort of environment that that when you run a hospitality business you have to sort of put up with. So that's just a little bit more detail behind that. But yeah, no, quite right. We need to get satisfaction figures much higher, of course. Thank you.
Councillor Andre.
Thank you, Leader. If I can just add to that, having spoken to local businesses, it would appear that as part of their package, as it were, that they're given well, if not in exchange, but as part of the D bid, they are given certain advertising. And from what I hear, that the take-up of that advertising, especially from the smaller businesses, whilst they appreciate the larger effort and the national advertising, they're not necessarily taking up all of the package that is offered to them. So can I perhaps suggest in mitigation that a little bit of work is done to encourage them to make full use of what's actually being offered by the D bid? Thank you.
And I think a lot of the dissatisfaction was with the ferry companies going down for quite some time. So I think that had an effect. Okay, so the proposition has been read out, the recommendation. It's been seconded by Councillor Paul Fuller. All those in favour, please.
1, 2, 3.
Those against? Any abstentions? 2 against, 1 abstention. That's carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to item D, which is the city status. The scrutiny was no formal comment was made, as this matter would be subject to the debate at full council. I don't intend to say much more than that. The recommendation is option 3 and 4. To support the motion and lead the preparation of a bid contingent on assistance towards the development of the bid being provided as part of the Shaping Newport Steering Group, and that the bid to be approved by those delegated to act on behalf of the Isle of Wight Council, NCCC, and the Shaping Newport Steering Group. That is the recommendation. Does anyone wish to speak to it? Councillor Jones-Evans.
Thank you, Leader. It's quite right. to point out that we'll be debating this fully at full council next week, because that's where it originated with Councillor Oliver's motion. Just wanted to update you and to say that Shaping Newport Steering Group did discuss this at length last week, and agreed with the Newport and Carisbrooke Community Council that the bid should go forward, and we'll be coordinating it with the relevant people to make sure that a very good application is put in, if that's what full council agree as well. So just say all steam ahead, really, just waiting on full council next week.
Councillor Love, you wish to speak?
Thank you very much, Councillor Julie Jones-Evans, and I would be happy to support the people of Newport and wish them well in their luck, wish them well in this project, presuming that it's a favourable vote now. And I'm happy to support you.
Anyone else wishing to speak? No, we'll move to the vote then. All those in favour, please show. That's carried, thank you. So we move on now to item number 9 on the agenda, which is the Climate and Environment Strategy. The proposed strategy was fully supported at the scrutiny meeting. So I look to you, Councillor Jonathan Bacon.
Thank you, Leader. I'm going to take a few moments with this because this is an important and fundamental decision and step forward for both this council and the island. As paragraph 1 says, and as you just said, we're looking for cabinet approval today for the climate change and environment strategy together with the attached action plan. And that follows a motion to full council in July 2019. And I would very much like to state at this moment that full credit must go to Councillor Lilly, who was the councillor who brought forward that motion and pushed it through with 23 councillors at that meeting in July 2019 voting for it. Even over the last 2 years, I think perceptions and ideas have changed, and particularly with the extreme weather we've experienced earlier this year, except for the most blinkered, people understand now that there is a problem and it needs to be dealt with. We're just a small part of the national, indeed worldwide jigsaw, but we must, indeed everyone must do what they can, hence this strategy. However, I should say that in addition to pursuing carbon neutrality for the obvious benefits that brings, our approach is going to be to seek wider benefits to assist a sustainable future and to protect and enhance our environment here on the island. The targets that are being put forward you'll find in paragraph 15. There is a staggered approach with the council having a targeted 2030, schools 2035, and the island as a whole 2040. There's a pragmatism there. The task and finish group that worked on this strategy identified that the council itself only has direct control over about 1% of our emissions, and the work in respect of the wider island is much more down to influence and persuasion, and therefore more time is needed for that. Of course, it still brings us well within the overall government target of 2050. A 15% potential offset has been identified as being, I'll say, a potential part of those targets, as very much the approach I would like to see is that being a last resort for the island achieving its targets. However, I think we can be clever here, and where we have capacity for offset, as we do on the island, nevertheless, we should try and achieve our targets, and we can perhaps use that capacity for offset as being part of the wider green offset economy. We have a potential there, which I think we should try and realise. A strategy is nothing without an action plan, and of course the action plan is attached, as you have all read, starts at page 236. It sets out 160 actions. The key thing I think I'd like to point out, I'm not going to go through that sort of granularity of detail, but both documents are organic. They will be continually reviewed, updated, adapted and amended to meet changing scientific knowledge, changing circumstances and so on. There will be formal reviews as part of that, initially after 9 months and then I hope every 6 months thereafter. And those formal reviews will be, as I say, informed by changes and the day-to-day process of putting the action plan into action. Of interest might be, I think it's paragraph 32, which sets out the initial, what is it, page 32? I can't find it now. Sorry, page 32 of the strategy, that's what I'm referring to, which sets out the initial steps that must be taken before that first 9-month review. It's a long list and it indicates how much work there's going to have to be. It's a big process we're entering. And there's a lot that has to be managed, and indeed that is set out on paragraph 24 of the report. And it must be said, it's going to cost a lot of money, and we don't have that money. So part of that management and part of that work is going to have to be raising that money. And that is going to be a big part of what we need to do. Finally, I would like to say that this strategy and the action plan are a key and important part of a wider process of ensuring a sustainable future for our island. Paragraph 20 of the report before you sets out some of the key strategies that we have at the moment, which this strategy, the climate change strategy, slots in alongside. The island planning strategy, which is of course under consultation at the moment, the island transport plan, the regeneration strategy, and so on. It's up there with all of them, just as important, some might say more important. And together, those documents, those strategies form, I suppose, the matrix of what we're trying to do with this this administration, excuse me, which is pursuing our aims of improved health, improved environment, and improved economic opportunity. So, as you said, Leader, Scrutiny gave full support to the strategy at its meeting on Tuesday. The options appear, paragraph 54, I think it is, well, the paragraphs 54 through to 55, but I would direct you to paragraph 54, option 1, which sets out the adoption of the climate change strategy and the 3 target dates, 2030, 35 and 40, as I mentioned earlier. And I would very much hope that all around the table will be able to support this, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions for Councillor Bacon? Is that a question? Okay, Councillor Fuller.
Yes, Chairman. We know that at the moment the Environment Act is going through Parliament. I'm just wondering whether you have any idea what is in that Environment Act. I know our MP Bob Steely is working on the Environment Act, and I was just wondering whether there has been liaison with the MP to make sure that both bits of legislation and this plan is compatible with one another.
We have no direct liaison, I have had no direct liaison with the MP since taking up this role. I cannot speak for whether he had involvement prior to May this year, but of course we must remember the government has set the strategy for the country of achieving net zero by 2050. So this fits in with that fully.
In that case, Chairman, I'm very happy to second that.
Councillor Phil Jordan and then Councillor Ian Stevens. Phil, I've said you. Thank you.
Sorry, Chair. Thank you. I'm happy to support this too. And just because it's my area of portfolio on transport, to comment on the interrelationship with this and some upcoming transport initiatives, local transport plan 4, for example, that contains some of the same aspirations that this document is bringing. There's a relationship between the two, and the more immediate bus enhancement plan, bus improvement plan, and enhanced partnership with the bus operators on the island, all talking about and aspiring to deliver better and more sustainable transport, and looking at the transport portion of this document could easily fit into both of those documents when they're produced. So I'm very happy to support this because it shows a joined up approach to us, and it's a future. And we're looking at 2038, 2040. We're looking in the glass balls a little bit about what our world's going to look like in 2038, 2040. But it's certainly going to have to be sustainable, and there's going to be a huge change in attitudes if we are to move people from things like single journey vehicles into public transport, good connectivity, sustainable connectivity, electric vehicles, buses, hydrogen, cell fuel buses, and so on. And that's very much part of this climate change document. So I'm happy to support it. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I'm going to bring Councillor Ian Stevens and then Councillor Chris Jarman.
How to follow Councillor Jordan when he's been encapsulated most things in what you've said, and so that's fine. But that's a challenge for me here. The challenge for us as a local authority is to take this forward. It's a very it'll stretch us. This is a very stretching strategic document underpinned by all the plans and policies. It's not going to be easy. Budgets are shrinking. We're going to be reliant on grant funding and joint working. And I'm not the prophet of doom, but I'm saying let's go for it, because if we don't, then we're not going to deliver anything or very little. So let's go for it. Let's search out the grant funding. Let's take something to the Isle of Wight that actually young and old alike on this island can hang on to and say, yeah, the Isle of Wight Council is a forward-thinking council, and we are looking to actually do our little bit for the planet, but do a hell of a lot for our people on this island, whether it be transport, whether it be employment. There's a lot of things here in play, so I'm fully supportive, but please, we're stretching ourselves to the limit. Thank you.
Okay, can I bring in Councillor Chris Jarman?
First of all, I'd like to commend Councillor Jonathan Bacon for his efforts on this. They've been over some time and it's extensive, so I'd hope we'd all join in with that. Secondly, is to recognise that there's no island or no part of this council which is immune to the climate emergency we now face or to the ramifications of the document before us. Indeed, we could easily regard this as one of the most significant documents the council has seen for quite some time. As a walk leader, one of the premises when we deal with the environment is encapsulated in a nice phrase, which is walk out what you carry in. And I would like to implore everyone who works on this forward, and for Councillor Bacon to support it, that we seek that any offset which is required is dealt with on the island, not by exporting that offset somewhere else.
Councillor Jarman, Councillor Debbie Andre, and then Councillor Julie Jones-Evans.
Thank you, Leader. And again, an extremely comprehensive document that is very well thought out. Part of it does fall into my portfolio, and I'm very grateful for the recognition that a realistic target of 2035 has been actually put on schools across the Isle of Wight. I would just like to highlight that as a local authority, out of the 49 schools, we are directly responsible for about 24. But this particular item, we will be encouraging and expecting all schools on the island. But with those 24 schools within our local authority, we will be setting the example. I'm very grateful to my team who have been very successful in getting funding for rebuilds. As we know, we've already had Christ the King College, we've got Freshwater in progress, and there are several more schools that are in the pipeline that have already been agreed with funding to be upgraded. And this very much fits with that, and the team will be working very closely to ensure that those upgrades actually fulfil this commitment. Thank you.
Councillor Jones-Evans.
Thank you. And Lee, just wanted to sort of say that, you know, we're already on this track, aren't we, as a council? I just wanted to sort of point out what's happening at Brownston, which you and I had a visit there just a few weeks ago. I'm very impressed with the sustainability of that location, the new levels of housing that they're providing there, the new green housing, and also the fact that it's a mixed development, so you don't have to necessarily, you know, drive anywhere to work. You know, you can actually live and work in the same place. I think maybe more mixed developments will be a good way to go forward. I just wanted to just just take one item out of this on page 55, output 29, about the people first. So people first is a very strong element of the Newport has, and has been, but 20 mile per hour has been an aspiration and a want really of the local council for many years. In fact, Councillor Bacon, you very kindly spoke at our conference in 2016, and I wouldn't sort of want to take out, I wanted to sort of diminish the importance of reducing traffic speeds, even if they are in the mandatory limits, because I think it does give a very important signal to motorists that there are people around here, and it can also decrease emissions too, it's been shown. So I think there's a whole element there of 20 mile per hour that I think we could still look at as well as help delivering some of this strategy. So that's it for me, but happy to commend this fantastic piece of work well done to everyone who's been involved, and I'll be glad to play my part to bring it to fruition. Thank you.
Councillor Jarman.
Just one thing to add under the inferences onto planning, and I've seen the figures many places now where they talk about a figure of 50 tonnes of carbon being the average production of a new home build. And I would hope that if this document is passed today, that the offset arrangements and compliance with it is added into the island plan, which is currently at draft stage. And I'd commend that action to Councillor Fuller.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Bacon, do you want to come back in?
Very briefly, Leader, I'd like to thank my colleagues for their comments. And yes, on that last point, Councillor Jarman, yes, Councillor Fuller and I have already in discussion on such matters. You did ask a question a little earlier about offsets, and yes, I concur fully with your view on that, and that's what we should be doing. And you reminded me, I was very remiss. You gave me some thanks. I've only been in this process a short time. Yes, I had some involvement previously through the AONB, but I think thanks should really go to two council staff who have been absolutely integral to this process. I would like that put on record, that Natasha Dix and Holly Jones are really the kingpins of the work that's gone into this strategy, particularly Holly. And I'd like to just publicly record thanks to them in particular. And I very much look forward to working with the two of them going forward to, as Councillor Stevens said, it won't be easy, it will stretch us, but it's got to be done. And we've got the right team to do it with those two.
Okay, so I think everyone spoke on the matter. Could I please go to the vote on that one to support the recommendation? All those in favour? Thank you. No abstentions. That's gone through. Thank you, Councillor Bacon. Okay, so we've got Councillor. Oh, this could go on now, couldn't it? Eh? Cabinet member announcements. Keep it brief, everyone. I'm going to come to Councillor Kohler first.
Asking me to keep this short is almost impossible. I will really try. So naturally, you would expect me to make some comments about the government announcements that have just been revealed from government about health and social care budgets. and I'm responsible for more than 700 people's jobs and work and across the island. So therefore, whilst the government has made a step in the right direction in trying to start sorting out some of the issues concerned with adult social care, to say that after analysis that I'm a bit gobsmacked and shocked about it is a slight underestimation of how we're feeling at the moment. So our council very bravely stuck its head above the parapet and wrote to Boris Johnson and was endorsed by the full council, asking him to fix adult social care system. And I can tell you that from initial analysis of it, this does not fix adult social care or go anything near like fixing adult social care. So we're very concerned. We accept that there are still many questions to be answered and information to come down from government about where it is. However, and I will hand over shortly to Councillor Jarman, who will give a little bit more feedback on this, but it falls well below what we were actually expecting. I mean, really well below what we were expecting, and could actually see us in a worse position than we are. The fact is that we are still in a position where we are going to have to cut our budgets next year for adult social care because there is a gap between the government's announcement of money arriving and where we currently are and the current situation that we are in. That it doesn't fix our system, it doesn't fix our employment issues that we currently have right across the island. And my biggest concern is that the government have stated that they want to speed up and deal with the backlog of hospital admissions. But it needs to be a balanced approach, and this is where I think the government failed to recognise that adult social care work in tandem with our NHS, and the front door has to work with the back door, which is adult social care. And if they don't supply equal amounts of funding to resource both elements, then one will fall down without the other. And so we are very concerned about the short term. We have a little bit more hope for the long term in that we may well be able to negotiate with them. But the immediate prognosis is not particularly very exciting. But we are not in this position alone, and we echo what other councils are saying and expressing right across the United Kingdom at the moment. More detail required yet, but concerned. And so if I may hand over to you, Councillor, if that's okay, to say just a few things about why we are concerned.
Thank you, Councillor Love. Yes, if I may, we commenced yesterday only some initial views on what this will mean to the council. And before I go into any of that, I should express my personal enormous dissatisfaction with what was announced. And I think the ramifications on this will echo for quite some time and have significant impact on the council. So profound disappointment is the best way to express it. In the documents which are announced so far, bearing in mind we don't have a lot of the detail, we are aware that it will have quite significant additional financial and risk implications on the council. We know that there's no new money for existing social care services. We know that the improvisation of a cap at 86,000 will mean that everything above that will be an additional implication on the council. We know that the capital limits which have been expressed of 20,000 and 100,000 will put additional burdens on the council at the bottom end and a graduated burden up to 100,000 on the middle end. We know that the market equalisation statement within the document provides for people who are currently self-funded, normally at a higher rate within care homes and services, to forego that in favour of a local authority-based model where they can shift the liability for managing that to the local authority on the basis that they will then expect to get the local authority discounts. Talking to a couple of the care providers already, the general feeling seems to be that the current beneficial rate enjoyed by the local authorities will need to increase because it is in effect currently subsidised by the higher private payers. And rather than the higher payers coming to a lower tier, it will mean that everybody moves to probably a standard tier somewhere between the two. And I don't think at this stage we have a feeling for what the financial implications will be, but they will be quite substantial. It was disappointing that the government failed to release the costing analysis that accompanies their very bold statements in another place over the last few days. And we do await that costing analysis. But we are aware that of the 5.4 billion, it's already clear that 500 million of that is allocated for workplace reforms. And although we don't have any indication of allocation to us specifically, we do know that the lion's share of it is earmarked clearly for the NHS, for their backlog and improvements over the next years. So we will be in a position of assuming greater risk, greater cost, greater management, with very minimal ability to offset that in any way. So quite a large implication on the council. We will update the cabinet going forwards as the information comes out, but we are aware that much of the data we need to complete that analysis will not be available to us in the level we need, probably until the fourth quarter at best. So it will be a graduated reflection of those numbers, and of course the need will be there to incorporate those risks, costs and expectations into our budget review process. Thank you.
I have to say, I commend Councillor Jarman for staying up until midnight when the paper was released and sitting and reading it. Councillor Love, did you want to come up very quickly?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Jarman, for that appraisal, which I endorse entirely, echoes the concerns. There are, of course, some winners in this, which we need to recognise, which are the general public in some of the elements released, that there may be some benefits to some people, and certainly for those people who have been paying for care for many years, who have now got a cap, can see that there's an end to that. Our questions as a council are to government about how they properly bridge the financial gap. That is where our concerns are about how we then pay for that and manage the additional onset. So that's the important point to remember here. Thank you.
Okay.
Just to come back briefly, I am afraid that as an island, if I look at the general demographics of the island, we may be disproportionately impacted negatively by this. And although I accept there's some who will positively benefit, you know, the number of islanders as a percentage with 100,000 of assets is probably lower, I would suggest, than many other parts of the country. And therefore the burden will shift disproportionately to the local authority.
Yes, I agree with that totally.
Okay, I'm moving on because that took a lot longer than I thought, but very important, and I think the public need to be aware. Councillor Debbie Andre, please.
Thank you, Leader. There's two things that I'd really like to highlight from my portfolio. At the end of July, we had a focused visit to the Isle of Wight Children's Services, focusing on the local authorities' arrangements for children in need and children subject to a child protection plan. And I would just, with your indulgence, like to read out the headline findings from that report, which was actually published by Ofsted 2 days ago. The senior leadership team have continued at pace with their transformation project since the previous inspection in November 2018, in which they were judged to be good. During the pandemic, they have implemented a new social work model and approach, which has had a positive impact on social work practice. The new approach is evident in children's records and other documents which are written directly to the child and family. Senior leaders acknowledge that further development and embedding of the approach across all areas of practice would strengthen the impact of this model on improving children's circumstances. And I would like to thank the team who have gone above and beyond to consistently provide a fantastic service and to ensure that the children on our island are kept safe. So I think that is a testament to them. The other thing that I would like to highlight, and something that I'm sure is on a lot of people's minds, is the options for the future of Chileton and Rookley. There will be a full options paper coming to this cabinet at the next cabinet in October. The recommendation that I will be putting forward to cabinet will be to approve a period of an open 6-week public consultation on all of the options set out above, and also that a report is brought to cabinet in spring 2022, which will set out the outcomes of that public consultation period, including recommendations on next steps and associated timeframe. When I first came into post, this was one of the first issues that I had to consider. I said at the time, we did pause this decision because we wanted to take a measured approach. And this is exactly what we have done. We have considered the options. I am proposing that we go out to consultation. We will fully consider the results of that consultation, and we will decide a way forward. We readily recognise that we do need to make a decision, but it was only right and proper that we made an informed, measured decision, and this is what I'm proposing. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Julie Jones-Evans.
Thank you, Leader. Just two things. We are moving forward with putting more flesh on the bone of our cultural regeneration strategy. And secondly, the Isle of Wight Council-owned Shanklin Spa site has now gone out to expressions of interest for developing the site. And pleased to report very strong interest, and we've had 20 responses so far in just a few days. So obviously a very, very good site. One fantastic sea views. There we go.
Thank you. Very good. Councillor Ian Stevens, did you wish to speak quickly?
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'll be very brief. You've got the documentation for the meetings here. If you look at page 31 to 33, it'll explain what's going on within my portfolio at this moment in time. So I'm going to leave it at that. Read that. For those that haven't got it, I feel sure that there will be a copy on the Isle of Wight Council's much improving website. Thank you.
Very good. Councillor Jordan.
Thank you, Chair. Two things from me. One is the interchange, which has been moved to October for the reasons that we wanted the time and space and ability to take on board and adapt and integrate any of the comments and ideas that came forward, which is what we're doing right now. And I can tell you that there are plans to incorporate those, and the draft plans are being prepared as we speak. Will be in time for our October meeting. There will be, at this stage, minor changes to the original scheme, but that will become evident and apparent when the draft is completed and finalised and brought forward for us all to see, public and us. I'll just remind us all that it's a transport plan. I've seen some comments this week about why is it a transport plan? Well, it is a transport plan because it's a transport interchange, and we're actually proposing to make it a better transport interchange. But I wanted to make that point because I'm seeing ideas being suggested that it's a public realm scheme and it's all about a pretty area of ride. We're getting out of the scheme some great improvements to our station and interchange for sure. But essentially, and I come back to what we were discussing about the climate change, this is one part of a bigger transport plan that improves our connectivity. People get on the train in London and get off in Shanklin with interconnectivity from Ryde Pierhead onto the Esplanade, pick up a bus, a taxi, a car, or a train when they're running. But this is the future. The point is that's coming forward, and the reason we moved it to October was because we needed to listen to what our residents were saying about it, and we're doing that, and it's going to make a difference. Second thing is our other great gift, which is the floating bridge, and you know that our aspirations and our commitment as a group coming into the election and into us forming this administration of the council was to resolve the floating bridge, and that's what we're doing. I can tell you that we are doing that, and you'll be pleased to know, I hope, that we are moving to mediation. I've asked for that to be before the end of November, and it's a tight time schedule, but that's what we're going for, end of November latest. It requires finding the mediator and people agreeing dates, but that's our target, the end of November. We're also commissioning a technical report, and that technical report will assist us in the mediation process to understand what the extent of the problems are and could be, and the potential costs of that. We need to understand that to take that into mediation and explain our losses, which are substantial. And all of this is going to be finalised by the end of this year. It seems a long way away, but it's not. By the end of this year, that's our commitment. And you may know that next May is the fifth year of the introduction of the floating bridge, and there's a 5-year MCA inspection. It's statutory. It's going to be taken out of the water and be out of service for about 4 weeks, taken away and inspected. There's a cost to that, but that's something we have to pay for. But finally to say, until we do the mediation, until we get the report in before the end of the year, no decision about the potential future of the bridge will be made by this administration. But that when that is in, we will be making a serious decision and deliver on our commitment to resolve the issue of the floating bridge. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Love.
Thank you so much for the clarity that you've given around the floating bridge. I'm sure that the residents of this island will be pleased to hear what positive things we are doing, and noting particularly that we are finally entering into mediation. I nearly said administration, then into mediation. That's right, which we were led to believe by the previous administration had taken place, and clearly had not taken place. So I am so pleased to hear that we are finally moving towards that solution, and that we will have that at the end of the year, and the people of my ward will be very pleased to hear that. Thank you.
I don't think anyone can comprehend the hours, months, years of our lives that we've spent on this. Yeah, just incomprehensible. Councillor Brodie, you wanted to come in a quick?
Yes.
I will allow it.
Well, I think I'm entitled to in the Constitution, actually. And I will always take advantage of the democracy within the Constitution. Thank you, Leader. Councillor Jordan seemed to suggest that the Ryde interchange should only be viewed on a transport basis, in almost like in a silo. Would he not agree that what happens on Ryde Esplanade with the Ryde interchange also has significant land use and public realm issues? And I would just draw his attention to what is, in my view, the abomination of the station change in Newport some years ago. I mean, the previous bus station was pretty dreadful, but we ended up with something even further worse, which has created, as Councillor Jones-Evans will tell you, many antisocial behaviour issues in the past at various times of the day. Would you not agree that the Ryde interchange is fundamentally important in terms of the use of the land down there and of the public realm effect it would have? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Jeff, for that question. Absolutely agree. We're not siloed. There's a transport plan for it, but the reality is the grant funding from the Department of Transport. It's part of a bigger £56 million transport scheme across the water and includes White Link and South Western trains for the pier and the station itself. There's actually an increase in public realm area in the same area that there is there now. The buses are being repositioned for a number of reasons. For reliability, for speed of access, improvements to that, and reduction in emissions. Again, coming back to the climate change paper we were talking about earlier. It's utterly vital that we get the best that we can for the public realm out of that scheme, and that's exactly what we're doing by listening to the comments and the ideas and suggestions from residents, many who use the area on a regular basis for either work or leisure. It's very important that we get that right. We believe we're getting that right. We believe it fits well. The buses in particular, we believe, fit part of will fit very well with the enhanced partnership scheme with Southern Vectors. We are increasing the reliability of the buses because at the moment, as you know, Jeff, they go to the roundabout up Dover Street and up Melville Street to arrive at the same place as 200 yards up George Street. That increases reliability, it reduces emissions, eventually it'll be hydrogen celled, so that will be less of an issue. So, and the buses will not be manoeuvring in an area where pedestrians are walking. They will come in and go out and turn right up George Street. On demand lights, by the way, another misunderstanding about it is that the traffic lights would work like everywhere, red, green, red, green, red, orange, green, red, orange, green. It's not the case. When buses wish to leave the bus stand, not bus station, the bus stand, the lights will give them priority and turn green, and the bus will go through and they will go back, and the traffic along the road will move until another bus wants to come out, as they run about every 10 minutes. That will give you an idea, I assume, of how the light's going to work. The answer, Jeff, thank you for that question. Absolutely vital we get the public realm right, but we think we're doing that. We have done the consultation. It's been open. There are conditions of the funding grant, and we've had to meet and correspond with those. But the public realm is the area that we've got some leeway to change. So I hope you'll see when the final plan comes through. I'm finished, Chair. When the final plan comes, just giving Jeff a proper answer. When the final plan comes through, that people will support it and understand the benefits of it to the community. Thank you for that, Jeff.
Phew, bet you wish you hadn't asked the question now, but thank you very much. It shows you, yeah, but do you know what? It shows that Councillor Jordan is absolutely on it under his remit, and that he is very passionate about what happens in Ryde. So thanks, Jeff, for raising the question. Right, Councillor Paul Fuller, how brief can you be?
Very, very brief. Island planning strategy roadshows are underway at the moment. We've done 13 so far, and there's 27 to go. We've met 365 residents. I'd like to say a big thank you to the Office of Support for our parish meetings. We've got library drop-ins, and we've got residents meetings that I'm meeting with residents on my own to talk about some of their concerns and trying to urge them to get involved. It's different from the online that we had, or the previous administration had. Although it is online, it's better to have face-to-face interaction, which is so important. I'd like to thank the officers, particularly James Brewer and Ollie Bolter, who has been sort of like taking questions with me and actually trying to dismiss some of the myths that there are with the island plan and how it's all about housing. It's not all about housing. I'd also like to thank the town, parish and community councils that have hosted some of the meetings. They've been absolutely fantastic. And I'd also like to thank the council and community libraries as well for hosting me as well. This evening myself is I'm off to Nettleston and Seaview Parish Council for their meeting at 7 o'clock, so I will shut up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jonathan, do you want to be quick so that you can leave in time as well? Is that okay?
I'll be quick because I'm giving him a lift, yeah. A bit of a hair was set running at the scrutiny committee on Tuesday as a result of the question by Councillor Quigley and the answer I gave, and I'd just like to make a statement in that regard, if you'll forgive me reading it. The Council is in the early stages of discussing potential funding routes to support our environment and particular schemes such as the action plan supporting the climate change strategy, which I spoke about earlier. Cuts in recent years and ongoing budget pressures mean that we may be at peril in being able to support this sort of activity, which is key to ensuring the sustainable future of our island. A green levy is a potential solution or element of a solution to this situation, but discussions about this are at a very early stage. We are not talking about a tourism tax. That is a phrase that has been circulated by the media and was not mentioned in the scrutiny committee on Monday. I'm also not talking about a means of plugging the budget gap, as the sums we're talking about could never reach those levels. As I say, what we're talking about, what my answer indicated, was discussions about a green levy. What could possibly be raised and the potential mechanism are not yet known. We're simply looking at things in principle at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. Councillor Chris Jarman.
Yes, I believe that puts me last in the list today anyway. Yes, Chair, I'd just like to note the implementation of the decision taken at the last Cabinet meeting to ensure that all legal actions go through the legal department, and to further note, with great pleasure, the accreditation of our legal department under the Lexil scheme by the Solicitors Regulation Authority. They achieved, remarkably, 25 out of 25 determinations of good practice, 0 major or minor areas of non-compliance, and all of that under the leadership of Justin Thorne, who I would wish to commend, and to further that commendation by extending it to our entire legal team. And I would ask the Cabinet to recognise that award of that certificate today.
Absolutely superb, Councillor Jarman. That's really good news. Really good news. Well done to the team from all of us. Thank you. Okay, I'm moving on to item number 11, which is consideration of the forward plan. We were very, it was very important that we gave a bit of meat on the bone, I think is what Councillor Brodie said. However, we do need to look at this format a little bit more closely, because we are aware that there's some items on there that have been published that actually aren't factually correct, that we need to get changed. So we're going to have to move this into a more of a living document, and really work to make sure that it works more efficient. People like the more information. We know that's working well, but we do need to make sure that information is correct before it goes out. So that is something that we will be looking at. And we move on to members' question time. What I would like to ask is if there are any questions for Councillor Bacon or Councillor Fuller, because they need to go to get to the planning meeting. So are there any questions? Yeah. Are there any questions for those two? No. Okay, no questions. Okay. So the written question we've had from Councillor Garrett.
Thank you, Chair. first of two. What assessment has been made of the effectiveness of the new St Mary's Junction for pedestrians, cyclists and vehicles, and what impact the junction has had on traffic flow on the dual carriageway, in particular southbound, in conjunction with the lane change experiment on the southbound carriageway?
Thank you, Chair. As Councillor Garrett knows, we've provided a written response. I have it here in my hand, as Neville Chamberlain once said, peace in our time. I just for the benefit, I always wonder about whether written responses ever get published. I don't know if they do, but just a quick price, if I may. So the answer to some of the questions is that the new facilities have improved the connectivity there. We haven't done immediate research into quantifying that, but there are improvements generally, and whilst we haven't assessed them, generally we feel that the improvements are good and delivering a better outcome. On the other part of the question, refers to, as we probably all know, on our motorway here, where the backup on the inside lane from the Riverway side caused delays under the motorway and onto the estate. And the changes that have been made there have moved the delays to the outside lane, but it has relieved and released the disruption we were finding around the Riverside estate and under the coming from Sainsbury's, coming from, is it Lidl or Aldi's, and coming off the Riverside estate has changed. But that the disruption is now in the outside lane more so, but it is nothing to do. That's an entirely separate matter to St Mary's Junction. It was a different decision that was taken, a different road traffic approach, if you like, Councillor Garrett. I hope that's a comprehensive response.
If I may have a supplementary, Chair. I haven't seen the response, and obviously I will consider that in detail. No doubt it came into my inbox after I'd left to come to this meeting. There are a number of issues there, and I would hope that Councillor Jordan, I'd ask him that he undertakes a full review and perhaps brings that to Cabinet at some point, because £6 million worth of expenditure should be properly reviewed. I wonder if he is aware, has he been made aware of the particular concerns from local residents about the safety of the crossing, pedestrian crossing on Forest Road, and also of the now observed effect that the crossing is the junction is indeed speeding traffic through to the southbound carriageway, but because of conflict now coming from the left-hand lane into the right-hand lane, which is now causing kind of a stoppage right at the slipway, traffic is now deciding to take a detour down Honey Hill, and this is frustrated traffic going at speed. The consequence of that I have observed is now that traffic that should normally be local and going down Honey Hill is now backing up in that right turn lane and backing up sufficiently to start to clog the junction itself. So I'm not expecting a further side and a half of response from Councillor Jordan. I hope my question is somewhat rhetorical, but that he's taken note of what I've just said now and that he will bring forward a full review at some point. Obviously, there are still other matters within the whole Newport traffic model to see through.
Thank you. I'm going to bring in Councillor Brodie.
Just quickly to follow up, I think the practice is that if a member puts in a written question, it will be part and parcel of the minutes of the meeting with the response attached. It's important that everybody sees Councillor Jordan's response. I know as a Newport member, you know, although it's not my patch, you know, I get constant comments about what was the point of that work. And I'm also getting comments already about something that is in my ward, is the St George's Way alterations, particularly northbound. Not so much southbound, which I think works quite well, but northbound we seem to have created a lane that's empty most of the time. you know, which is not really the intention, to be frank. It's helpful for me if I'm driving and come, because I always go up Staplers Road, so I zoom round now instead of having to nudge round like you used to in the past. I mean, certainly the junction at St Mary's, the pedestrian crossing that Councillor Garrett refers to, is highly dangerous. And I'm ashamed to admit, I came the closest to killing somebody at that junction in my driving life recently, because somebody stepped out. I didn't notice that the lights had just changed, and I really had to slam the brakes on, you know, and I wasn't going to kill them, but, you know, it was the closest to killing somebody I've ever done in my driving life, and I've been driving since I was 17, you know, so it is, I think it's quite a dangerous crossing, Andrew, and I'm glad Andrew's identified that, and I'm not sure why it was designed like that. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, yeah, so yeah, the response, we can email the response out, but it can be part of the minutes as well. Okay, and then Councillor Garrett had another question regarding the local council tax support scheme.
Yes, thank you, Chair. What assessment has been made of the capacity for the council to reverse cuts in the local council tax support scheme that we have seen over recent years, and what priority will the administration give to doing this?
Do we want to read it out? Is that the best way?
It's got 2 pages.
It is quite a lengthy response.
If it is lengthy, I'm sure I'm happy to take it as a written response. It will be circulated to everybody, but I would make a supplementary point. Councillor Jarman is new to the council, but I'm sure he'll have been told that the local council tax scheme has been something that I've raised and resisted cuts in year on year. I hope the new administration will look to reverse those cuts over the municipal cycle. I accept that it may not be able to do so in its first year, in which case I would hope that Councillor Jarman would look to ways in which we can improve the way we can support poorer people through the hardship fund, notably because a number of those will now see a loss in income through the cuts in the universal credit uplift. In time, they will see an increase through national insurance, a cost on their jobs, which for the people on lower incomes will have a disproportionately greater effect. And also that there are projections that this winter we will see inflation rising close to 4%, quite a significantly higher figure than we have ever seen, along which is, there are many reasons why costs are going up. So I would hope Councillor Jarman, and I'm happy to work with him on this, if a first route to that is finding ways of making the hardship fund more generous, then I hope he would do that. Thank you.
I have to say that was one of the things, that was the last bit on the line, was that should you wish to come and help, being the mathematician that you are and the brain that you are, the two brains together might come up with a very good solution. So thank you. We will send that response out. Are there any other questions from anyone? No? Well, at 6:30-ish, around about that time, I call the meeting to an end. Thank you very much, everybody. Go home and have some nice supper.